Hey, In2Picklers, welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast designed with your pickleball improvement in mind. Jill and I are out of town this week, visiting family, but I wanted to reach out to y'all with a quick podcast. Wish you all a happy holidays. Hope everybody's doing well. And I wanted to talk for a few minutes about the new drop serve rule. I know the drop serve rule is causing a lot of concern out there in the pickleball world, and I wanted to kind of share with you my thoughts about it and tell you what I think, what I originally thought about the drop serve and what I think about it now, and see how you all feel about it, and just have a brief conversation about it, or a one-way conversation about it, a monologue about it. Basically, you know, when I first heard about the drop serve rule being implemented, if you go back and watch the video that CJ Johnson and I did with VIPickleball, where we interviewed Don Stanley about it, I was a fan of the drop serve when I first heard about it, because I thought it was a tool that was going to be used to basically help beginner players, you know, players that aren't comfortable tossing the ball and hitting it. It also might alleviate some of the concerns about the three rules, the three rules of the regular in air or toss serve. But now what I'm seeing is, you know, since it got enacted, I'm seeing all these videos and analysis, which is basically showing the drop serve being used offensively. I just saw a video recently of Tyson McGuffin trying it out. I saw a couple of videos of players showing different ways to slice it, or really, you know, really jack spin on it, just go crazy with spin on it. So now I'm looking at the drop serve as being not a mechanism for players who are having trouble with the regular serve, people who have the yips and things like that. If you look back, we had a video probably about a year ago where it's called the Pickleball Service Yips video, where I recommended that you use what's now the drop serve, but I recommended using the drop serve not as a serve to be used in games, but basically as a way of getting your timing back, so that then from that you could go back to the in-air toss serve more confidently or more comfortably. But you know, so that's kind of what I was thinking when I heard about the drop serve being adopted, or this new drop serve rule. But you know, based on what I'm seeing now, and based on how it's being utilized, or probably will be utilized, I'm not sure that the drop serve is going to be, is going to be really that great for the sport. I'm still on the fence about it. I want to see how it plays out. I actually want to see how the pros use it or don't use it. You know, to me, the pros are the barometer of how much can you use a rule to your advantage, legally, of course, but how much can I use a rule to my advantage to gain an advantage, in game, to gain an edge in a game. Think about like the Ernie. I mean, the Ernie is a rule that applies to all players. All players can use it. It's not really a rule. It's just, not violating a rule. But basically the Ernie idea, or the concept of the Ernie, is something that is available to all of us. Most of us don't use it, and very few of us who aren't pros use it well. But something the pros, they push that edge, right? They use that edge to kind of gain a little bit of an advantage when they're playing. And so, I'm curious to see how they're going to use the drop serve, if at all. If I don't see a lot of pros using the drop serve, or if I don't see pros using the drop serve, effectively to improve their odds of winning, then I'm going to come back to, okay, the drop serve is really just a basic alternate technique that players can use if they're uncomfortable with the toss serve. If, however, pros are able to utilize the drop serve to gain a competitive advantage in the serve, then I'm going to be a little more concerned about the drop serve rule and its long-term potential impact to our game. I mean, one of the beauties of our game is that it's a game that encourages play. So basically, like the serve and the return of serve are just kind of get things started, and then from then is how you develop the pickleball strategy. If you have a serve that gives a more intense competitive advantage to the serving team, that might affect the balance of power on the court, where you have the serve team can score, but the return team has the advantage from the beginning. If you start giving the serve team more and more advantage, that'll affect the balance of the game, which is one of the beauties, I think, of the game. And actually, a quick sort of digression, not a digression, but let's put it in context. So if the serve, so we say serve all the time, right? But we don't know where serve comes from, or maybe you do, but most people don't know where the term serve comes from when I ask them. So the serve actually originates back in tennis, when tennis started. So we got to go back to the mid 16th century. We're in England or France, because that's where they play tennis. So pick whichever country you prefer. And so you're going to be in one of those two countries. You're going to be playing tennis. Now, if you're playing tennis in the mid 16th century, so in 1550, 1580, something like that, Most of us wouldn't be playing because only royalty and nobility played it. So if you're royalty or nobility, you come from them, then you might have been playing back in the day. But if you're playing tennis back in, again, let's go back to 1560 to pick a year. You got to place yourself on that court and imagine how you're dressed and who you're hanging out with, right? So the dukes and everybody, and the king and the queen and basically the counts, they're all hanging out playing some pickleball, and they're dressed to the tees. They're not dressed in shorts and t-shirts and things like that. So now picture the ball, rolling along the court. Well, they're not picking up that ball. I mean, they're dressed to the tees in proper wear. Although, curious side note, Queen Mary of Scotland would play tennis in her knickers, and since she's a queen, nobody said anything to her. But anyway, nobody's picking up the ball. So who picks up the ball? By now, you probably figured out, kind of where the term comes from. So the servant picks up the ball, and now the servant's holding the ball in I assume his hand, maybe his or her, but let's say his hand, and has to start the point or start the rally. Well, you can bet whatever you want that the servant is not going to beam the ball at the king or the queen. So the servant is going to serve the ball into play by just placing it into the stream of the point, right? So basically starting it, just tossing it out there or bopping it out there, so that the players can actually play the game. So that's the original serve. Obviously, the serve in tennis has morphed into an offensive weapon, where you have players who are able to win matches and sometimes just defend themselves just by having a big serve and maybe not much else in their game. And so that's something that pickleball, I always thought, harkened back to the original serve in tennis, meaning it was just basically, let's get this point started or get the rally started by serving it, returning it, and let's get going. The new serve rules, if they start being used offensively, will alter that balance. And so I think it's something that needs to be kept an eye on. I know they've made it a provisional rule, so the idea is that they'll look at it after the year. My suggestion is going to be that they look at it sooner than a year, because what happens is, anything in life where you leave it out there long enough and then try and take it away, good luck with that, right? So my suggestion is that based on what we're seeing right now, these videos that we're seeing, based on the first few tournaments, I'm hoping that the USA Pickleball Association will be open to revisiting the rule, making sure that it complies with what the committee and the board of the USA Pickleball Association originally intended when they adopted the rule. And so that's the hope that I hold out. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully that'll happen. I'm sure the USA Pickleball Association, I have no doubt, always has the best interests of the sport and of the players in mind and in their hearts. Whether you agree or disagree with their decisions, I don't think that I think that they're volunteers mostly who just trying to do the best they can for the sport. So I think as players, I think it's it's incumbent on us to communicate with them and express to them what we're seeing out here. But I've seen some of the posts and the comments I've seen about the USA Pickleball Association, this, that, and the other thing. Just not necessary or frankly appropriate. I mean, I think they're doing the best they can for the sport with the right ideas in mind and the right intention in mind. And I think by being supportive, we can cooperate and partner with them to protect the sport that I'm sure they love and that all of us listening to this podcast love. I know that Jill and I love. So anyway, so that's kind of a couple of minutes there on the drop serve, or a little more comments on the drop serve and the history of the serve. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this week's podcast, please share it with your friends. If you like this podcast, they likely will too. Have a happy holiday, and we'll see you in 2021. Stay well out there.